Welcome back to the next installment of automating a DA Form 6 Army duty roster form. In the last video, we discussed this drop-down to change automatically when someone works and when they have off. And that's great. Today, we're going to do conditional formatting. Conditional formatting would be super helpful to let us know what days are Saturday and Sunday, when someone's off duty, and when someone's on vacation for any reason, like these. Just kind of color code it, so then at a glance you can see anything that's not color coded means that you should expect somebody to work. I did this in my previous version. At the bottom, where I had a key. And I'm going to copy that and paste it over here. So under this, I'm going to paste. Just paste. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just for this so I can get this centered. Oh, that's a little too far, but that's kind of how the form's going to look. We're going to hide these dates, and then this stuff at the bottom will not be printed. But I want to move this over so it makes sense. To about there. That looks good. We'll do it one more time. Do it one more over to the left. And you guys can move that wherever you want. But what I did here, let me zoom back in. What I did here was I took the codes from when you can have a day off scheduled from the availability tracker, special dates tracker. Take all these codes and put them at the bottom and make myself a little key. And some of these are going to be the same color because they're basically the same thing. A day off, funeral detail, and 3-day and 4-day pass were all basically days off. School was a different color. It is gray. It's a different color gray on purpose. But I wanted to pick colors that at a glance you could look at it and not have to worry about it too much. You don't have that many people on quarters, so having a dark green and dark black doesn't really matter. You could change the color to white if you want. But we're going to use these as our examples to use for our colors. I'm just going to do it like that. And this will not be printed when you print the thing for your duty. You're going to print from here up and then hide that one date cell range. I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to do the day off one, but all of these you do exactly the same way. To do conditional formatting, the first thing you want to decide is what cells do you want to affect? What cells do you want to compare a condition to and then have something done to them? So in this case, I want to take all of the days that we possibly could have, even the ones that are not assigned right now because it could be assigned in the future. So I'll highlight this whole range, and that's going to be our effective range. Under conditional formatting, we're going to say you could use some of these, but these predestined conditions, they don't really match what we're trying to do here. So instead, I'm going to make one manually. So with everything highlighted, select New Rule, and you can read through these, and you could probably use format only cells they contain, but I'm not used to doing that. I'm used to just use a formula to determine what the cells to format. Now it's going to sound a little counterintuitive, but we're going to type in just J6 because what this does is it says this specific cell. And when we highlighted everything, it actually changes it. So if we put J6, it'll say J7, J8. I'm sorry, it'll say K6, L6, and then J6, J7, J8. It'll do it for you. So we're just going to type in for the first thing here and say equals, because it's a formula. Equals. The formula is you have to tell it what what cell that you're trying to affect. So in this case, it's J6, and that's our first one. That's the highlighted cell here for Ox King is J6 equals quotation X1 quotation. So it's saying if this cell right here equals X1, then do something to it. What we want to do to it is under format, we have our font selections here that we can change our font. We can change the border, and we can change the fill color. In this case, we're going to do fill color. I'm going to select a gray, a light gray, so when we print it, we can still read it, but it's dark enough that we would know something is different. I'm going to hit OK. That looks good to me. You can change, if you wanted to go in here to font, change bold, italics, change the font size, all that stuff. You can do all of that. But I'm not going to. And then we'll hit OK. And what it did was it went to each of these individual cells, found which one said X1, and colored it gray. If we want to do another one, we want to keep our same range of everything. Conditional formatting, new rule, and do exactly the same thing. Equals J6 equals quotation X2 quotation. That's our formula. And then format fill gray, OK, OK. And then we have our X2. And then one more time, new rule equals J6. And you can tell I did not have to click off and re-highlight everything. You can do all these at once, and it makes it a lot easier. X3 quotation, format, fill, the first gray color is the one I picked, hit OK, OK. So now, if I were to select and change the days to 3 and 3, 4 and 4, now on 4 and 4 you see X4 is not gray because we did not tell it that that was a condition. If for some reason you wanted to change the color, or you typed your formula wrong, or whatever it is, we can highlight the affected cells that we want to change, go to conditional formatting, manage rule, and these are all the rules that we currently have. If I wanted to come in here and change it, I can go to edit rule and then just edit it and make it pink if I wanted to. Hit OK, hit OK. Apply, and now all X3s are pink. Peach. Whatever color it is. And then we can change it back. And that is the basics of conditional formatting. You can use this key at the bottom to decide what colors you want to use. You can change them if you want. But basically, you want to have it so that somebody that's going to read this, that's not you, or is you, you from next month, you got a lot of stuff going on. Next month from now, you're going to be able to say, what do these colors mean? And they should make sense. I'm not going to do the rest of the conditional formatting, but you can feel free to do it. It's very simple. The next topic we're going to discuss is the ratio. For this, I'm going to move our cell here with the drop down. Now, if you left click on the cell, so you have the drop down, and you click the border, your icon changes into a 4-way arrow. That will let you left click and drag over to get it out of the way. But it still works. All right, so do that. And then in here, we're going to have different numbers for our ratio. The first number we're going to have is days worked. I'm going to leave a blank space here just for if we needed a border for some reason. And I'm going to work in this cell. I'm going to merge. Let's see. We're going to merge these three. Merge in center. We're actually going to right click, go to format cells, alignment, and then take this orientation and move it straight up. This is how we did our dates. Hit OK. And then now, when I type in here, days work, it puts it up sideways. Now, it looks too big for me because it is. I want to lower this font size. Let's go with 9. That works. That fits. Might have to make it smaller. Maybe it's the font I'm using. I'm not sure. Oh, in my original document I had 4 cells. But that's okay. So this is going to be days work. And we want to have the ratio of how many days, how many days each person worked. Now, for the purpose of this, anytime you have a special date like SC or an E or whatever it is, if it's not a number and it's not an X1, it doesn't count. So we want to take the ratio of how much this guy worked based off of how much he did not work. So days worked is a simple function, and we are going to use count. So equals count, and this counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. So if it has anything except a number, it just won't be counted. We're going to highlight the whole row here for this one person, and then hit enter. And if we count here, we got 4, 8, 12, 13, 14. If we change this to a day 5 and 2, now he's on 17. So it counts how many times he has a number. I'm going to copy this all the way down to the bottom. And we can leave zeros. I don't really care if it has a 0 on this side because nobody's really going to see it except for you. If you wanted to say if this guy is blank, then you can do that. Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so if the name of the person here equals blank, then blank, otherwise do everything else. Hit enter, and then it tells you I forgot to put a parenthesis at the end. Do you want to put the parenthesis? Hit enter. Whoops, I missed a comma. Put a parenthesis, and then that. Now if I paste that down, all of these extra zeros go away. Going to do the same thing here. Merge and center. Format to alignment. Orientation straight up. Days off. Now, I want to show you guys a little trick with the formatter paintbrush. Let's say this was yellow and it had red text. That looks ugly. And I want it to just look like this one with the same font size because this is a font 9 and this is a font 10. If I wanted to change this, I can left click, select the one I want to copy, select Format Painter one time. Just click it and then click on the cell that I want to apply that to, and it does exactly the same thing. It's 9, the font is Arial, and it's centered. I actually don't want it to be centered though. I want it to be like this. So then all of them are aligned to the bottom, but to the center. So this is going to be the same idea, except we're going to count how many days off this person has. So we want to say equals count if. Now there is a count ifs with an S, but for some reason it doesn't work when I do it, so I'm not going to do it. I could fight the formula. I could go and Google it. I'm not going to do any of that. So instead, we're going to use count if. The first argument we need is range. So I'm going to use this as my range, which is the whole month for that one guy. And then comma, what am I looking for? Quotation, X1 quotation. Close parenthesis and hit enter. It comes up with 3. because I'm counting how many times it says X1, 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 and X1. So it's 3. But I actually have X2. And when we look in our little drop down here, we have all the way up to 4 days off. It'll probably never happen, but you never know. So we build for the unknown, build for expansion, right? So we're going to go all the way up to X4. And all we got to do is take this formula that we just wrote, and copy it, and put a plus sign, paste it in there, and then change that 1 to a 2. Put a plus sign, paste it, change that 1 to a 3, and then put a plus sign, and you guessed it, paste, change the 1 to a 4, hit enter, and what do we get? 6 days off, which is X1 and 2, X1 and 2, and X1 and 2 equals 6. If I were to test again and put 3 and 3, he has 11 days on and 12 days. He worked 12 days and had 11 days off. And that is correct. Now, we want to go ahead, because we don't want to have zeros at the bottom. We'll say if, and we're going to bracket this all in together. If this cell here equals blank, then show blank. Otherwise, and I'm going to put a parenthesis, open parenthesis for this, all the way to open parenthesis for this. Push. So just like in math, anything inside the parentheses are all grouped together. So by putting a parenthesis around both, it's going to group all that together and say, if all of that's done, then just do this. Hit enter, and we're good. Copy this thing down all the way to the bottom in case we add somebody later, and you'll see the numbers here. We can change our days, and it goes ahead and counts it for us. Now that's great to know how many days on and off people work, and from a glance you could say, okay, well, this guy had 8 days off, this guy had 6 days off. Well, who gets to work the next day? It's hard to tell, because this guy had 6 days off too, but he only worked 16. So technically, he would be the next guy to work, because this guy worked 17. So if somebody's going to lose a day off, it's probably going to be this guy. But that's hard to tell from these numbers. What we need is the ratio of both numbers. So we're going to do it again. So I'm going to do my trick here and select the cell that I want to mimic, left click the format painter, and pick the topmost cell that I want to affect to go down. Now if I type in here ratio, I don't know why it looks weird, there's a space there, ratio, and then I wrote a note in here that says lower means work more, worked more. And I'm going to make this guy fatter. In the format cell option, I'm going to change and say wrap the text instead of shrinking it. Hit OK. And now we have almost everything in that cell that we wanted to have in there. Might have to make it fatter. There you go. Ratio, lower means work more. So to get our ratio, we're just going to divide the days off by the days worked. So take equals this cell divided by this cell, and what do we get is a decimal point. That's exactly what we want. We're going to copy this guy down, and we get a value because we can't divide two numbers that don't exist. Again, we're going to sandwich our formula at the beginning. If the name equals blank, then blank. Otherwise, do that and hit go. Same thing, but when we copy it down, all of our extra crap goes away. I know it gets repetitive, but I got to explain it every time or somebody's going to lose track. Now, what we see here, it says lower means that you worked more. So based off of the 28 days this guy worked, he had 12 days off. Everybody worked 12 and 28. Now, if I were to prove this, if I change this to a 6, that means he worked more. His ratio should actually be lower than the other guys. Let's change a couple of these to 6. There we go. So now he worked 3 more days, and his number went lower. His ratio is lower, so it means he worked more. That's one way to test it. But now we can look at a glance and say, this guy doesn't actually get to work next because his ratio is 37 or it's 0.37. These people who actually didn't have any time off for the whole month actually have to work more when the next person needs to come up for working, which would start with one of these 3 guys. And that's fair because by the Army, if you're in school, that doesn't mean you have to work every day after that. You still have the same amount of on and off days as everybody else. It's just taken out of the equation. Now, to help with that, figuring out who should be next to have a day on, we're going to make 2 more columns. Use my Format Painter here and paste. And actually, if you wanted to double-click Format Painter, then that means just keep doing Format Painter until I tell you to stop. So we can actually double-click that. So low, next, on, and low, next, off. With these, I'm going to make the font, actually make it smaller so you can read it. Now we're going to rank, we're going to rank these numbers to see who's next. Let's try the rank formula. What does that give us? Rank, just rank, not average or equal. Rank the number. So the number that we're going to rank is actually our ratio. And then comma, our reference is the group of numbers. So click and drag down. And we're actually going to lock those in. We're going to constrain those numbers, but we're not going to constrain the first number. And then comma, which order are they in? Descending or ascending? And we want to say descending. I think we want to do descending. So it'd be the lowest number would be number 1. I mean, the highest number would be number 1. So they would be the first person to have the day off. Let's try that and see if that works. So 8. And if we copy this guy down, everything looks fine. Yep. So like I said before, these people would get they would be first up to work. So this tells me these people are first up to work. And then there's 3 of them. So it'd be first, second, third. And then that's why there's 2 4s. And then we skip 5 and go to 6 because there's 2 4s. But we have our error down here because there are no numbers to work with. So we're going to do our little sandwiching thing here and say if error. Actually, we'll just say if. Same thing. If this equals blank, then blank. Otherwise, rank and then close that parenthesis and hit enter. We'll paste our formula down and everything's gone. So if you want to know who is the next person so let's say you're on a day and you go, okay, I need one of these two people to work. Should it be this guy or should it be this guy? Well, you come over here and you go, well, it could be this one or it could be this one. Well, this guy's number 1, so he's first up. So he's going to actually have to work that day. That's how this works. And then it'll balance itself out later because now that guy worked, he'll be lower on the next to work list. And when you do all that, it balances the sheet over time. And it is more fair to the soldiers to do it that way because if you don't, you'll end up with something similar to this where this guy has he had way too many days off. He should probably work more based off of this. But if you take these numbers and you expand this out further, it would balance itself out. This guy would end up working a bunch of 5s in a row, and then these guys would work a bunch of 5s and 6s in a row, but this guy would end up having more days off. So he would probably get a 4 to balance it out. You know, give him a day off here, give him a day off there, and then everybody will catch up. If it was all balanced, everybody would have a 1. But right now, it's not balanced, and it can't be because we didn't give it any reference points. We're going to do the same thing for this next person to get a day off. It's going to be the same formula. Equals rank. Nope. Equals rank. Be careful when you hit tab. Rank of this thing, this ratio, comma, the reference is going to be everybody's ratios. We want to constrain that, put a comma, and then last time we did descending, this time we're going to do ascending. And then we'll hit 1 for ascending. Hit go. So, who should have the next day off? It should be this guy. Because he worked 30 and had 10 days off, which is a lowest ratio. So he should have the next day off. And then this guy has the next day off after that. This guy has the next day off after that. So balancing these out. And these guys are 7th in line to get the next day off. So they're not going to get a day off for a little bit. We want to fix our formula like we did before. If equals blank, then blank. Otherwise, that. Close your parenthesis at the end. Hit enter. And copy this guy down. Now these numbers, if you don't know what they are, it's kind of confusing. But that's why I put the titles up at the top. And we can actually, you know what? I'm going to just merge all of these. I'm going to merge them down. I'm going to merge them down and we'll use my format painter. Let's try unmerging. Yeah, unmerge first, format painter for the win. Now, when we hide this cell here, hide, because we're not going to have it open all the time, you can still read it. But this still needs to change back to format cell and change to wrap text. Now that looks a little better. We can... Whoa, my mouse is a little crazy. All right, so let's take that and we'll put borders around everything so it's a little easier to understand what's going on. All borders. And that helps a little bit. And those are your ratios. And your understanding of your rank of who should have next off and next on. We have our 5 and 2 thing here, and that's a good spot for it, so I'm going to keep it there for now. We might change it in the future, but for now, I think that's all I wanted to show you in this video. Again, leave a comment down below if you want to see more. I'm keeping macros out of this as much as possible because some computers have macros blocked, and getting them to work on your government computer isn't necessarily easy. And it's not a good idea to run macros unless you build them yourself. Macros can be very harmful to a computer. That's why they're blocked. But this is not blocked, and we can do all of this without worrying about compromising the integrity of a computer. In the next video, I'm not sure what we're going to do. So leave a comment. I'll noodle around here and see if there's anything else we could do to make this work better. Goodbye.